Yes, Kenya. Tamu sana, tamu sana, tamu sana, yes. A lot is happening in the country. William Ruto intends on selling some parastatals. And about 2 days ago, he was in Kisii County, where he threatened to deal with those challenging his housing levy. And he made it very clear that he will use the sword he was given when he was being sworn in to deal with those crooks challenging his housing levy in the courts. Listen to William Ruto briefly before we dig deep.
Mimi nahitaji tu maombi yenu, kwa sababu si mnajua nilipatiwa panga pale, nilipatiwa sword kubwa hivi. Kwani mnafikiri hiyo sword ni ya kukata mboga? Si ni ya kufyeka wakora hawa? Ndawafyeka kabisa.
That was William Ruto about 2 days ago. And he was threatening to deal with those challenging his housing levy in the courts. But the most annoying bit about it, a whopping majority of Kenyans, in fact over 90%, are against William Ruto's housing levy. And by some Kenyans going to court to challenge that, they are actually doing that on behalf of the over 90% of Kenyans. So when William Ruto says that he will deal with those who are chorus, he's actually threatening Kenyans. And one such Kenyan who has taken that issue to court is Okiya Omtata. Omtata now feels William Ruto is threatening his life. Listen to Okiya Omtata before we proceed. Okiya Omtata believes William Ruto is threatening his life because he's among the few brave Kenyans who challenged the housing levy in court, and they are still in court. So he believes William Ruto is threatening his life. And if you look at it very objectively, William Ruto is not only threatening the life of Okiya Omtata, but he's also threatening the lives of millions of Kenyans who are against that housing levy. Because by Okiya Omtata going to court, he represents a whopping majority of Kenyans. Over 90% of Kenyans are behind Okiya Omtata. So in actual sense, William Ruto is just threatening Kenyans. And you can now see how rogue power has corrupted William Ruto to a point he's even threatening those who voted for him. He feels he's too powerful to be stopped. And just as Okiya Omtata made it very clear that as long as William Ruto rules within the constitution, then yes, he might be right, he cannot be stopped. But if he rules against the constitution, then he'll be clearly stopped. Listen to Okiya Omtata once more before we proceed.
My advice to him is that he's only unstoppable if he's operating within the law. The moment he steps outside the law, he's stopped by the constitution. And he's not an emperor. He's a servant of the people. He's not a king. We are elected to serve and he earns a salary. He's not a regent, he's not a king. So he should not begin fooling himself that he's a king that's going to rule, that he runs this country like a private kiosk. You have seen his obsession with roadside road declarations. Wherever he goes, he's declaring projects. What happens to the budget that the parliament passed? So all these things are there. And the fight we are having now is a fight over Chapter 12 to make sure that the public finances are protected, public assets are protected, and we are going to do everything possible to remove money from his control because the treasury as it's constituted now is unconstitutional. The treasury is not supposed to be under the Minister for Finance and therefore under the President. It's supposed to be independent and serving the 48 governments, the one national and the 47 county governments equally. So those are the things we are going to take up. A budgetary corruption and using the budget to steal from Kenyans, we are going to fight and stop it. Money that has been stolen in the past through the budget, We are following it and we are going to follow those people. Article 225, clause 6 is very clear that if you are in political office or in the civil service and money is lost under your charge, you are liable, whether you are in office or not. So we want to invoke these clauses and ensure that the assets of the people of Kenya are protected and their taxes are also protected and are accounted for. So the president should stop fooling himself that he's above the law. He's not. We are going to ensure that he rules this country or he governs this country according to the law as a servant of the people and not a master of the people. So he should stop issuing threats. The sword he was given at Kasarani was a ceremonial sword. Our national anthem, if he thinks that sword is going to penetrate the republic, he should listen to the national anthem, which says that justice be our shield and defender. So that sword that he thinks he's going to be proud of cannot penetrate the demand for justice and the right to justice that Kenyans have. And the custodian of justice in this country is the judiciary. And we are going to make sure that what is rightfully ours remains rightfully ours.
What does all that mean politically? William Ruto is not politically smart. I'm seeing him as a noisemaker. Somebody who talks too much to a point, he contradicts himself and betrays his mission. A few months ago, William Ruto was talking of sugar cartels who had hijacked the sugar sector. And he told Kenyans very well that these cartels were in the courts, that they were blocking the progress of the sugar sector by taking, or rather by challenging some government's initiatives in the courts. And he said very well that mambo yao yalikuwa matatu. At that point, Kenyans thought that William Ruto was honest, that he wanted to fight the cartels. But now William Ruto threatening again those challenging his housing levy in the courts. He's threatening to use the sword to deal with them. That betrays William Ruto's initial remarks. In fact, he's just exposing himself that he was not actually serious about the cartels, but all he wanted was to silence those challenging his illegal initiatives in the government. That's what is coming out very clearly now. Because if William Ruto can force Kenyans to be deducted housing levy forcefully, and then Kenyans challenges that in court, and then he wants to use a panga to deal with them, that betrays his initial remarks on the sugar cartels. The cartels were actually not the problem. Ruto and his government was clearly the problem, as now being exposed by these recent threats on Kenyans challenging his housing levy. So as much as he wanted to convince Kenyans, and he did convince Kenyans that maybe he was fighting the cartels, Kenyans are now seeing that there was no cartel in the first place. It's just William Ruto and his silly Kenya Kwanza politics of retrogression. Nothing like fighting cartels. If anything, it might be possible that some rogue elements in this government had planned to hijack the sugar sector by actually bringing unfair competition to those who are already in that sector. That's what is coming out very clearly. And also, we are seeing clearly that William Ruto is drunk with power. He thinks he's too powerful to be stopped. He doesn't care what Kenyans on the ground are saying. What he says is law, and he doesn't want that law to be challenged. His word is the law, and he doesn't want that to be challenged. Just as Okiya Omtata said, this is not a monarchy. Kenya is a democracy. William Ruto has to respect the constitution. Let me stop it there, ladies and gentlemen. For those watching us but you have not yet subscribed, subscribe, give this video a like. Let's meet in our next analysis. Thank you.